Good morning. I'm as curious to hear what I'm going to have to say as you are. Well, first of all, good morning. Nice to see all of you. And actually, I can see all of you. You all look about the same from here, by the way. It's lovely to be back in this district for many reasons. One is that this is a district that many years ago in Nemacolin created a relationship with Sue and Bruce, well, more with Sue than Bruce, actually, that was all bonded on the same experience that you just witnessed. But it was also a chance to get to know many of you that have been part of my Rotary education and experience. And so for all that you folks, the dear friends that are here, that we've had extraordinary circumstance together, stories together, meals together, minds together, and life together, it's nice to be back at home. And for all of you that have come to join us, Vicki is I am from Vicki's part of the world, and remarkable individual. Vicki, as I said last night, you're an impressive person in the way you communicate and the way you connect. Thank you very much for being in leadership in this organization. And as you heard, I'm going to be lucky enough to be the chair of the 27 convention, and it's a unique opportunity because we have no idea where it's going to be. I have an idea. I've spent the last 2 weeks looking at 4 cities. I'm not going to go into what we think might happen and what we are going to do, but that'll be up to the board of directors on the 19th of June. So stay tuned and we'll all find out where we're going to be. But as a result of that, I've had more than an opportunity to attend conventions. The one in Calgary will be my 36th. And so I know, get a life, but it's okay. I like them very much. But what really struck me, and you've heard all the accolades for the district conference here, you really have seen what an international convention's like. The quality of speakers, the feeling that you have, the internationality that you have from Portugal, from where is that place you come from, Helen?
Up north.
Up north, yes, the up north. Internationality. It's okay, I've known Lena for a really long time and can give her that grief and she'll return it in favor. Anyway, yesterday morning, Friday evening was stunning enough, but yesterday morning spoke to me. Those 2 young men on this stage. The first thing I did at the first break was to go up and say, what are you doing in 2027? Because I would love to see that expression on our international stage. And all I kept thinking about as I was sitting here watching is, how cool is this? How cool is it what we've had a chance to experience together? And what really became clear to me was the coolness of Rotary, of what that really is. And if you think about what is when we say cool, now I could go to, that dates me by the way, and I'm sure it dates most of the people in this audience. I could say groovy, but that actually, or bitchin', those two really came to me. Rotary is bitchin', probably wouldn't translate well into Norwegian, okay. But, okay, wait, this is not audience participation, just saying. But that was a classic moment with the dude thing. Mainly because it took Bruce so long to hear dude. But if you think about it, cool is actually the right word for what I think Rotary is. If you define it, it comes to very good or excellent or attractive or satisfying, right? I mean, you can think about, that is so cool, right? And you've probably said that yourself. Or, this conference was so cool. Or, Governor Nick and Jen, they are so cool, right? Or, this entire conference really has been so cool. But for me, I think what it really says is, and forgive me for doing this, but it's done for purpose, I think the Rotary is so cool. Really, she stands up on stage last night and puts me at that billing, and if I don't perform, or if I just come in as average, I'm going to be, he wasn't that good, really. So I'm going to force myself to say the Rotary the rest of this speech. But think about that. Excellent, attractive, satisfying. I mean, in many ways, that sort of defines us. And let me give some dimension to each one of those, because I think it really does speak to the coolness of the organization of which all of us are a member, or all of us should be a member. And some of you who are not, I think to be sitting here right now and going through the speeches you've heard and the awards you've seen come to express, you understand the relationship and why this is so cool. I mean, so first to start about our excellence. You could just start with a very basic notion of an organization that decides, after 3 people think of an idea that makes a difference in their part of the world, that all of a sudden we can expand it globally with the belief that we can eradicate a disease. But what I think is truly remarkable is we take that and now expand it to say, well, okay, we got done with that one, or we're almost done, we're going to make sure we finish that. But there's this other one called malaria, so let's go in and just knock down the cases by 50% within a year. And if you really want to talk about the remarkable nature of that, we do that in our spare time. Few of us have given up our lives in order to do this. We've dedicated our lives to doing it, but we still keep our day jobs. We still keep our life. And we still have this possibility of making this remarkable effect on the world. But we talk about the case counts and we talk about the numbers, but honestly, there is so much more to that story that rarely gets told from my experience. By profession, I'm a tour operator, and I take people overseas for purpose, and because of that, I got more involved with Rotary because many years ago, about 26 years ago now, I started taking people overseas to do polio eradication drops, to have that experience. And I know the person who started that applause because she was one of them. And in going overseas, when we first started going and doing this, we would go out into the village, and one of the healthcare workers, the local community healthcare workers, normally it was an elderly woman who knew where all the children were in that village. And so we would go around and each door to door and immunize the children. And as we did that, we would tick off on a piece of paper how many children we'd vaccinated. At the end of the day, we'd get together with the elder. She knew how many children were in the village, and we would compare and see what our coverage was. That was the best we could do at that time. Not too long ago, I was, again, doing polio immunizations. This time I had someone from the World Health Organization that was with us. And I noted that every single child that came in to get immunized was carrying a booklet that had their health record. And I said, that's really different. What started that? And he said, the eradication of polio started that, because we realized we weren't doing enough by just ticking off the numbers on a page. We needed a record for them, and that built their health record. And when I talk to you about the village I was in, we were nowhere near any urban area. It had reached that deep. So all of a sudden, we really fundamentally had changed immunizations for children globally, just by going after that one idea of eradicating a disease. But I'll go one step further. Many years ago, I had a group in Côte d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast. We were in Abidjan, which is the capital. We were in the hotel lobby waiting for the local Rotarians to come pick us up so we could go out into the field and do polio immunizations. And as we were standing around in our Rotary gear waiting to go out into the field, I noticed off on the other side of the lobby was clearly a woman from the United States by the way she carried herself. But more importantly, she was a cleric because she had a collar. So having some time, I walked over and introduced myself, and I said, so what are you doing here in Abidjan? She said, well, I'm with the United Methodist Church of Texas, and we're here to give out mosquito bed nets. That was a southern accent in case you missed it. And I was like, wow. So she was going to give them out to mothers and children to prevent them from getting malaria. I said, great, you said we, but I don't see anybody else. How many of you are there? There's 23 of us. That's good. And how long will you be in country? 10 days. Oh, okay, that's cool. And so how many mosquito bed nets are you going to give out? 800,000. Exactly. And I said, so what makes you think you can give out 800,000 bed nets with 23 people over 10 days? And she grabbed my shirt where we had the mark of excellence, and she said, we saw what you did, and we're just copying you. We never had a chance to see that because we've been so focused on the case count. We have fundamentally changed the way that people look at that aspect of global service, just by what we did in our spare time. But the thing that really struck me more than anything, and I'll speak to this more a little bit later, is what it did to us. We left the comfort of our weekly meetings to go to places we never knew we would go, that we never knew existed, in order to give out these 2 drops. And it changed the way that we looked at the world. We started to look at the world as some place that we had a responsibility in. And yes, we did it beforehand, but not as much as we're doing it now. When we started this in '85 is when the idea came to fruition. '87, '88 is when we actually embarked on this campaign. It was all matching grants and they were very small. We really didn't view ourselves as getting on an airplane and going over to a country that was in need in order to eradicate these diseases. But it also, for me, identified a whole other mechanism that's a part of Rotary that I think is one of our most extraordinary benefits of membership. And the reason I say that is I've seen it work on our members. You see, going overseas and giving out those 2 precious drops, as you heard Vicki describe them, is remarkable. This feeling, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but with those 2 drops, I felt like it changed the course of someone's life through their health. But that's not the most remarkable part that I've seen. The most remarkable part is what it does to you when you look up and you see the village you're in. And you realize that creek, well, that creek running through the center of the village, that's not fresh water. That's sewage. Or you go into a school and there's 4 children sitting at one desk, crammed together, each with a piece of paper in front of them. But only one child has a pencil and is doing their work. And you're thinking, what the heck am I looking at? And you realize what you're looking at as soon as that first child hands that pencil to the second child. That is a story that I saw in the first person. And you react exactly like any human. And that is, I don't know what you folks are. I will get you a pencil. I will get you a box of pencils. I will figure out how to get supplies to this school so that none of the children in this school ever need a supply in order to learn. Or you come back out and you look at that creek and you say, I think Rotary does something about water and sanitation. And you go back home and you talk to the district Rotary Foundation chair, the grants coordinator, or the most experienced past district governor you can find, whoever it is that has that wisdom. And all of a sudden, I watch these people change as to what they believe they can do. It enables the dream. And that's where I think this benefit of membership that is unique to our members. Yes, we have to actually work with other people sometimes in order to bring it about, but none of this could happen without our members being the central part of it. This benefit of membership that enables us to believe that we can actually do something remarkable overseas. It's called the Rotary Foundation. We tend to talk about it as a bank account, and we should, because that's the way that we're able to make these dreams come to fruition. But you know what? I don't look at the foundation simply as to what we do to the beneficiaries. What I have seen is what the Rotary Foundation does to you, with this firm belief that you have a role to play and the tools to do it. I make this testimony to you because this was the story of my life. And while I won't go into that because it's kind of a long story, it was what changed me from just being a part of Rotary to believing I had a role in this organization. And I'll explain why a little bit more later. See, I think that we are excellent by what we are able to do globally, what we're able to do locally, and what we're able to do to our members. So now let's talk a little bit about attractive as being a part of cool. You've heard reference here many times on stage that we're a service organization. And while I respect that notion, I'm going to challenge it because personally, I do not believe that we are a service organization. We've had this debate for a long time, and I'm specifically now looking at David Alexander. But we've had this conversation of, are we a service organization with members, or are we a membership organization that does service? In this debate in my head and in this debate with others, the one quote that I heard that clarified it for me the most was given by a gentleman by the name of Richard Branson. Perhaps you're aware of who he is, the Virgin Group of Companies, who has the quote that says, clients don't come first, employees come first. Because if you take care of your employees, they will take care of your clients. If we take care of our members, they will take care of the world. They'll take care of their community. And so for me, I believe that we are the most extraordinary membership organization that does service on earth. If we're a service organization, that competition is fierce. There are for-profit entities right now. I mean, in my community, they're selling mattresses, talking about how they perform service to their community. Buy one of our mattresses and we'll give back to our local community. So we're in tough competition if we singularly focus that we're a service organization. But if we talk about how we have our membership, what it does in the community as a distinctive quality, and how we do it in a way no other organization of which I know can do it, we stand alone. And as you heard Lena focus on it, and as certainly you heard Vicki focus on it, it is our members that are our unique quality. Our members are extraordinary. From every person that sat in a chair here and believed that they could alter the course of action in their community, up to the people that we've had a chance. When I was aide to Jennifer, we sat with presidents of countries. And yes, that was in large part to pay respect to Jennifer as the leader of our organization, but every single president that we met was because of a Rotarian who knew them enough to get us in the door. Unusual circumstances of our members, these people of action, these people of purpose, these people of influence that we get a chance to be a part of and aspire to be as good as them. It is why I believe that we really are a unique organization with the type of people that we get to sit next to every week. And I say that because I've observed and listened to many people talk about it. In District 5130, which is in the Northern California coast, I was sitting at a membership seminar that they were giving, and they had a panel of young Rotarians, none of which was older than 30. And one woman, when asked why you like Rotary so much, she said, because every week I get to sit next to somebody that otherwise I would have to spend $250 an hour to meet. Right? And she didn't want to be there for their job opportunities. She wanted to be there for their wisdom, for their understanding. I mean, I joined Rotary when I was 26. And I came in for a very selfish reason. My father was the district governor, and he wanted me to join Rotary and start a club. And it was so much easier to join Rotary than it was to listen to my father. And if you knew my father, you would know I just did not exaggerate. But through that course of action, I found that I started to learn more about myself. Because I got to meet people that I thought, wow. I remember vividly a guy by the name of Joe Serra, who used to go into Malawi. He's a doctor to do post-polio surgery. And the first district conference I ever went to was in 1982. A guy by the name of Rick King was the governor at that time. And I was listening to this guy giving up his day job to go to Malawi to do surgery. And I kept thinking, there are people that do this kind of stuff? Why? I mean, yeah. Admiration, most certainly. Confusion, definitely. But all of a sudden, cut years later, and I'm going to Africa. Perhaps because of that idea, but also because of the dots that connected me between that moment and the time I climbed on that first airplane to go to Africa. So I think what it does is it changes us. There was another woman that I was speaking to, and I asked her, why do you just got done talking so favorably about Rotary, why? And she said, because it makes me a better person. And I think perhaps that is our secret. Listen to every story you heard, to every accolade that was given. We help our people become better at what they do in life. Yes, to help other people. But it even, I think, gets beyond that as to why we're so attractive. Our daughter went to UCLA, and we went down to UCLA as part of Parents' Day. And as they do in many universities, they shove you all into a big auditorium and give you a professor to talk about something. So we went into this hall, and a gentleman by the name of Matthew Lieberman, who is a neurobiologist, was giving the speech. I'm not big on neurobiology personally, but I listened to him, and it was interesting but not remarkable until he said that towards the end of your life, being socially disconnected has an effect on longevity equal to smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Okay, I caught my attention. Tell me more. So all of his speech was given about how they measured brain, the brain scans, you can see what lights up when things happen, and all the tests they ran. And then he got into talking about happiness and measurable elements of happiness. And yes, the baseline is money can buy you happiness, but what was bigger and better than that? He said there were 2 things that were the most extraordinary markers at how much happiness, or registering how high happiness can go. Number 1, recognition by your peers. Think about last night. And number 2, and the highest rated, helping other people. Being connected socially, being recognized by your peers, and helping other people. Our brains are wired for Rotary. Our brains are wired for what we do to our members. And you see, I think that when we talk about the values of Rotary, personally, I think we should always talk about what we do to our members first. Because if we take care of our members, they'll take care of our community. So we are attractive. And while we struggle to find that attraction at times because life is busy, I think that we have the opportunity to articulate it so well by just telling our personal story and not framing it always as what you do to others, but what Rotary has allowed you to do to yourself to make you a better person. But then, I also learned a lot by being aide to Jennifer in the sense that in doing this, I started to help her in connecting with other organizations. And what really surprised me, although I should have known better, was what they saw in us. We engaged at one point the USAID in a process that we were going through. And as soon as they understood what we offered in this brief conversation with one person, that person believed in us so much that he convinced the process to put a Rotarian speaking about public health. This was during COVID time at the 2nd International COVID Conference that was convened by President Biden. And a Rotarian spoke about Rotary at the 2nd session as the 2nd person in that session about who we are. The people that have lined up, I'm a part of a Rotary Action Group that does health camps in Africa. The amount of organizations that have queued up to help us has been remarkable to me. I think they know us better than many of our members know our organization. People are watching Rotary and they believe in us because we're international and yet local. We think about the various steps to make lives better, and it all accumulates towards peace. And we don't tend to think of peace as an abstract concept, but a real concept. You need to recognize, at least I have come to recognize, how attractive Rotary is and what we do. But then the third piece is satisfying. We've talked excellence, attractive, and satisfying, of how cool we truly are. You see, I think that yes, service is a part. Yes, the interplay that we have is a part. But it's also the life's experience. why do we work? Well, I think there's two basic reasons. One is to provide for your family, to make sure that they have a roof over their head, that your children get a good education, and then have life experiences. I came to learn that actually Rotary served both purposes well. I started, as I mentioned, taking people to the first place I went to was Ghana, and I just want to point out I really appreciate seeing this flag here, because when this one rolled out, this is the basis of my story. My life in Rotary changed when I went to Ghana the first time in 1998. We started taking groups every year back to Ghana for, I think it was 6 years in a row, to do polio eradication work. And the first year I went, is in 1998, the past district governor had connected with the Rotary leadership in Ghana and said, 68 of us are coming, what can we bring? And at that point, they weren't weighing suitcases. So we called them and said, what should we bring? And they said, use clothing for the very old and the very young. All right. So at that time, our daughter Blair was 3 years old. If you've ever had a 3-year-old, you know they blow through clothing within days. So there was a substantive pile there at the end of her clothing that needed a home. So we asked Blair, you know, Dad's going to go to Africa. Would you donate any of your used clothing to the children in Africa? And Blair literally went over and pulled the clothing she wanted to have them take, helped me pack my suitcase, and off we went. Came back from Ghana, or got to Ghana, I should say, and we had 27 bags full of used clothing for the very old and the very young. So I came back, taxi rolled up, I wheeled my suitcase to the front door, crossed the threshold, Marsha opened the door, and up came a 3-year-old dart, Blair, wanting to see pictures of kids wearing her clothes. Have you ever disappointed a 3-year-old? The lip came out, you know, the dejection, the whole thing. Off she went. I went upstairs and unpacked my suitcase. And when I came back downstairs, I went into the kitchen and was going through the mail that had accumulated. And out of the corner of my eye, I could see Blair standing at the door into the kitchen. And I just kept going through the mail. And she walked up and she stood right next to me. And she looked up and you could just see the gears going in her head. And she said, Daddy, we did something really good. It was right at that moment that I realized that my engagement with Rotary didn't come at the sacrifice of my time with our children. They were watching, and she recognized the value of Rotary. She recognized that what we were doing was teaching her something that was precious. And so a couple of years later, in 2002, Evan, our son, who was 11 at the time, Blair, who was 7 at that time, came over to Africa and gave out polio drops to kids just a few years their junior. It changed them. It completely changed their projection, their concept of what they wanted to do. Evan came back in his school, loaded a 40-foot container of used computers and books and sent it off to a school in Ghana. Blair walked up to me at one point around Christmas time and said, Dad, I need poor people. What? Well, you see, my school, I decided that we would do these gifts for children that don't get Christmas presents, and we have some Christmas presents, and I need poor people. Okay, so I contacted the club in the community in which we live, and yes, they could help us do it. And so we went with a couple of pickup trucks to go get this, and we walked into the hall that every school seems to have that doubles as a gym, and it's got a stage at one end, and the curtain was drawn, and when they pulled back the curtain, it was packed. We had to call out other members to come with their trucks so we could load this stuff out. And it all started in Ghana, a place where they have people that they call aunts and uncles. Talk about satisfying. It created a whole new arc for not just them, but me. And I don't doubt that were it not for that personal experience and were it not for the wisdom of a 3-year-old, I probably wouldn't be standing here because I'd be doing other things in life, not recognizing the value of this. You see, I think that this thing that we have gives us the opportunity to become better people. We have a standard called the 4-way test that helps us to engage ourselves as better people, and that we take ordinary people and put them into extraordinary circumstance. Yeah, it's satisfying because of what we do to us and that opportunity. And I know that I'm speaking to many of you who have that feeling of what this organization does to it. See, you want to talk about the coolness? When Marcia and I, well, this will tell you a story that's both interesting and sad. Marcia and I got married on a Sunday. We went out for a mini moon, came back on a Tuesday, and that was our charter banquet. So we cut that short. Yes, it was kind of sad, Paul. Thank you. Anyway, we went off to our full honeymoon, and we went to Paris. And we were in Paris, and we decided, let's go to a Rotary meeting, because they told us if you wore this thing, and you could walk into any meeting, right? So we decided that, during our honeymoon, we'd go to a Rotary meeting. We needed a break. Anyway, from sightseeing, come on. Super 6400, really? Anyway, so we go into this meeting, and have you ever been to a really boring meeting in another language? I mean, we could recognize what was going on, but somebody was trying to interpret for us and the whole thing. But it had its cool element because you're sitting in this meeting with a bunch of strangers, and then they brought you in. Anyway, guy came up to us at the end. He said, "What are you doing today?" No, I think it was Thursday. It was a couple days later. "What are you doing?" "Well, we'll still be here." He goes, "Let me take you around." He took us into a museum we never, ever even knew existed. Took us up to a little cafe up at Montmartre. And then that night, took us into one of the Rotarians' homes that was a walk-up. And when we got up to the top, it had a door that you could open up onto the roof. And so we did the whole Mary Poppins act. And where we were was right next to the Seine, across from the Place de la Concorde. Okay, so you've been there, you now know where we are. And the night sky was on fire. It was July the 14th. And I just turned to Marcia and said, and this is a quote, "This is so cool." Where else do you get to drop into a foreign country, into a city, meet people, they take you around, they bring you in their home, and then they have fireworks for you? Rotary is cool. Rotary has most certainly changed me, and I have seen hundreds of people that I've taken overseas become changed because of who we are, the people that we get to sit next to, the inspiration that we may see on a stage, or the inspiration we get to sit next to at our meetings. When you hear the awards that were given out last night, and how Rick was being recognized for what he did in this world, there isn't a person in the room that doesn't say, I'd like to do what he does. I don't care if I get an award. Wow, what an expression of life, what a validation of my purpose here on earth. And for me, there's a medical clinic in the community of Kokorobite in Ghana that when I was installed as a chief in the God tribe and I sat there, I kept thinking, how did I ever wind up doing this? Rotary is cool. It fulfills all of those aspects of excellence, of attractiveness, and of satisfaction. And no doubt you must know this by sitting in this room on a day that you could be doing any other things to hear people like me. And after the billing that I got last night, I hope you think this presentation was cool. Thank you.